The planet 7 was where ships came to die. Mountains of broken metal stretched across the landscape. Engines that once carried thousands across the stars now sat rusting in the acid rain. This was the edge of the galaxy, forgotten by everyone who mattered. Cole liked it that way. He was 52 years old, with hair and hands covered in oil stains that would never wash out. 20 years ago, he had been an engineer on a warship. He had watched his friends die in the Third HFY War. Now he lived alone in a converted cargo ship called the Stubborn Mule, and he spent his days taking apart dead vessels for parts he could sell. It was honest work, quiet work. The machines never asked him questions about the war. They never looked at him with pity. They just needed fixing and was good at fixing things. On the morning that changed everything, flew his small salvage craft into Sector 9. The locals called it the Graveyard of Giants. This was where the biggest warships had fallen during the final battle of the war. Most salvagers avoided it because the radiation was bad and the ghosts were worse. Not real ghosts, of course, just memories that seemed to live in the twisted metal. His scanner beeped. Something was drawing power in the wreckage of the HSS Prometheus, a legendary ship that had been destroyed 15 years ago. That was impossible. Nothing should be alive in there. Should have turned around. He should have reported the signal and let someone else investigate. But he was curious, and curiosity had always been his weakness. He docked with the dead ship and walked through its dark corridors. His flashlight cut through the darkness, showing walls by fire and floors stained with old blood. The Prometheus had died badly. 3,000 crew members had gone down with her. The signal led him deep into the ship, past the engine rooms, past the crew quarters, down into a cargo hold that was not on any official blueprint. A secret room. Had heard rumors that the hegemony kept special weapons hidden on their biggest ships. Weapons they did not want anyone to know about. The door was thick and heavy. It took him 20 minutes to cut through it with his plasma torch. When it finally fell, the smell hit him first. Rot and waste and something else. Something alive. Stepped inside and stopped breathing. It was a dragon. The dragons were the most terrible weapons of the war. The hegemony had created them in their laboratories, mixing alien reptile DNA with nanotechnology. They were huge, intelligent, and deadly. They could survive in the vacuum of space. They could breathe plasma fire hot enough to melt starship armor. They bonded psychically with pilots and fought with perfect coordination. After the war ended, the hegemony had ordered all dragons destroyed. They were too dangerous to let live. Finding one was a crime punishable by death. This dragon was enormous. 30 meters of black scales that shimmered like oil in his flashlight beam. Its wings were torn and folded against its body. Chains thicker than its arm were wrapped around it, embedded in its flesh where the skin had tried to heal around the metal. It was so thin that could count its ribs. 15 years. This creature had been chained in the dark for 15 years, starving slowly, unable to die because dragons were built to survive. The dragon opened its eyes. They glowed like dying stars, pale gold with flecks of orange. They should have been filled with rage. This creature had every reason to kill the first human it saw. Instead, saw something that broke his heart. Hope, tiny and fragile and almost dead, but still there. A translator node was fused to the dragon's throat, a device that turned its thoughts into words. When it spoke, its voice was rough and weak, like stones scraping together. "May I have leftovers, sir?" Stood frozen. Of all the things he had expected, this was not it. Not a request. Not the word please hidden inside the sentence. Not the respect in sir. As if was someone important instead of a dirty salvager who talked to machines because people were too hard. The dragon's eyes met his, and something happened. Felt it like a door opening in his mind. Suddenly he was not alone in his own head. He could feel the dragon's 15 years of darkness and pain and loneliness. He felt its confusion when its pilot died and no one came to free it. He felt its slow acceptance that it had been thrown away like garbage. He felt its desperate, impossible hope that maybe this human would be different. And the dragon felt him. It felt grief for his dead crew, his guilt that he had survived when they did not, his loneliness that he had carried for 20 years. It felt how he talked to machines because they were the only things that did not judge him. It felt his stubborn, foolish heart that still wanted to help broken things even though helping always led to pain. The bond formed between them, not the forced military connection that the hegemony created through surgery and drugs, but something natural and gentle, a choice made by both of them in the same moment. Did not understand what was happening. He only knew that this creature was hungry and hurt, and had waited 15 years for someone to show it kindness. He thought about his own dark years after the war, the times he had wanted to give up, the small moments of grace that had kept him going. He reached into his pack and pulled out his lunch. 3 ration bars, a packet of dried fruit, and a container of something the label claimed was cheese. "I don't have much," he said, "but you can have all of it." He walked forward slowly, hands shaking, and placed the food on the ground near the dragon's mouth. The creature looked at the tiny meal, then looked at him. A tear rolled down its face, hissing and steaming where it hit the cold floor. Dragons could cry, had not known that. "Why?" the dragon asked. Thought about the question. Why help a creature that could kill him? Why risk his freedom, his life, for something the whole galaxy wanted dead? The smart thing would be to walk away, report it or forget it, go back to his quiet life of rust and silence. But had never been smart. He had always been stubborn. "Because you asked nicely," he said, "and because nobody should have to beg for garbage." He sat down on the dirty floor, pulled out his tools, and began to examine the chains. They were hegemony military grade, designed to hold a dragon forever. It would take him weeks to cut through them safely. He said as he worked, "I'm going to get you out of here. It might take a while, but I'm not leaving you, okay?" The dragon watched him with those golden eyes, and through their new bond, felt something he had not felt in 20 years. He felt like he mattered again. "Okay," the dragon whispered. "I will wait. I am good at waiting." Smiled despite everything. "Yeah," he said, "I bet you are, but you don't have to wait alone anymore." Outside, the dead ships of Sector 9 drifted silently in the void. Inside, a broken man and a forgotten monster began the long work of saving each other. 1 month passed, had moved the dragon to an abandoned mining asteroid 3 systems away from 7. The cavern was cold and dark, but it was safe. No one came to dead rocks in empty space. Every night after his salvage work, flew to the asteroid. He brought food, so much food. Dragons needed 2 tons of protein every day and was spending every credit he had on black market synthesizers that could produce enough meat to keep the creature alive. His savings were disappearing fast, but he did not care. The dragon was getting stronger. Its scales had started to shine again. Its torn wings were slowly healing. But it still flinched when moved too quickly, still apologized when it ate too much, still seemed surprised every time he came back. "Why do you return?" the dragon asked one night. They were sitting together in the cavern, leaning against the dragon's warm side while he ate his own small dinner. "You gain nothing from this. I cannot work. I cannot fight for you. I am useless." Chewed his ration bar and thought about the question. Do you know what humans do with useless things? Throw them away. That is what the hegemony taught us. "Some humans maybe, but not the good ones," smiled. "My grandmother had a garden. She grew tomatoes and peppers and herbs. One year she had a tomato plant that never made any fruit. It just grew leaves. Everyone told her to pull it out and plant something useful. You know what she did?" "No." "She kept it, watered it every day, talked to it, named it Henry," laughed at the memory. "She said Henry was doing his best and that was enough." The dragon was quiet for a long moment. Through their bond felt its confusion. The hegemony had never taught it about kindness without purpose. Every good thing in its life had come with demands. Food came with orders. Care came with missions. Love did not exist at all. "What is a name?" the dragon finally asked. Turned to look at it. "What do you mean? You have a name, don't you?" "I have a designation. VX7741. It is a number. It tells you when I was made and what batch I came from. It is not a name." The words hurt more than he expected. He thought about his daughter, Emma, who had died in the war. He remembered picking her name, how he and his wife had spent weeks reading baby name books, trying to find something perfect. A name was a gift, a promise that you mattered. "A name is different," said slowly. "A name is something you give to things you love. It means you see them, not what they can do for you, but who they are. Dragons do not have names. We are weapons. Weapons do not need to be seen." Stood up and walked around to face the dragon directly. Its golden eyes watched him with uncertainty. "You're not a weapon," he said firmly. "You're a person. A hungry, scared, very large person who likes it when I read to him and makes a humming sound when he's happy. You deserve a name." "I do not understand what I deserve." "That's okay, I do," studied the dragon carefully. In the dim light of the cavern, its black scales caught stray reflections and turned them into colors. Purple, blue, green, gold, like light through a prism. "Can I give you a name?" The dragon trembled. Through their bond felt fear and hope mixing together. "You would do this. You would name me." "If you want me to." A long silence, then very quietly, "I want you to." Smiled. "Prism," he said. "Because you look black, but you've got every color hiding inside you. You just need the right light to see them." The dragon made a sound had never heard before. It was crying. Tears ran down its face and hissed where they hit the stone floor. But these were not sad tears. Through their bond felt something breaking inside Prism. Old walls falling down. Old beliefs crumbling. "Prism," the dragon repeated. "I am Prism. I have a name." "You have a name," agreed. "And you have me for whatever that's worth." Prism lowered its massive head and pressed it gently against his chest. The mechanic wrapped his arms around as much of the dragon's snout as he could reach. They stayed like that for a long time. 3 days later, everything went wrong. Was working in his shop on 7 when a shadow fell across his doorway. He looked up and felt his blood turn cold. The man standing there wore the black uniform of a hegemony overseer. His skin was pale, his eyes were dark, and his smile was the smile of someone who enjoyed causing pain. "Cole," the overseer said, I have some questions about unusual psychic readings in this sector." Forced himself to stay calm. "I don't know anything about psychic readings. I just fix ships." "Of course." Walked slowly around the shop, picking up tools and examining them. The hegemony detected something interesting recently. A dragon bond signature. Very faint but definitely real. You would not know anything about that, would you? Dragons are all dead. Everyone knows that. Yes, everyone knows that. Stopped in front of. But sometimes things survive that should not. And sometimes humans make foolish choices because they feel sorry for monsters. Said nothing. He thought about Prism alone in the cavern. He thought about the chains he had finally cut away last week. He thought about the way Prism had cried when gave him a name. Studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "I will be watching you, Mr. Cole. Humans are sentimental creatures. That sentimentality will be your undoing." The overseer left, waited until his ship was gone, then closed his eyes and reached through the bond. "Prism, we need to talk about what happens if they find you." Through the connection, he felt Prism's fear, but he also felt something new, something that had not existed a month ago. "Trust." "I will do whatever you say," Prism replied. "You gave me food, you gave me a name, you gave me hope. I am yours, not because I must be, but because I choose to be." Leaned against his workbench and felt tears prick his eyes. He was an old man with nothing but a broken ship and a talent for fixing things. He had no army, no power, no plan. But he had made a promise. "Then we learn to hide," he said. "We learn to fight, and if they come for you, they'll have to go through me first." Far away in his dark cavern, Prism curled around himself and felt something warm in his chest. He did not have words for it yet, but humans had a word. They called it love. 3 months had passed since found Prism. They had fallen into a routine, worked during the day, salvaging parts from dead ships. Every evening he flew to the asteroid and spent hours with his dragon. He brought food, books, and stories. Prism loved stories. Would sit against the dragon's warm side and read aloud from old human books. Prism's favorite was The Little Prince, a story about a small boy who loved a flower. The dragon did not understand all of it, but he understood the important part. The boy loved the flower not because it was special, but because he had cared for it. The caring made it special. "Is that what you did?" Prism asked one night. "You cared for me and now I am special." Smiled, "You were always special, I just helped you see it." Tonight Prism was sharing his own stories. Through their bond he showed memories of the war. Saw other dragons, dozens of them, flying through space with fire streaming from their mouths. He saw pilots strapped into metal frames on the dragons' backs, their minds connected by cables and drugs. He felt the pain of that forced bond, how it burned and demanded and never stopped hurting. "My pilot was named Sergeant," Prism said. "He was not kind, he used the bond like a whip, but he was mine and I was his. When the Prometheus fell, when the fire came, I tried to save him." The dragon's voice broke. "I failed. He died screaming in my mind. I felt everything." Put his hand on Prism's scales. "I'm sorry. After he died, they chained me in the dark. They said they would come back for me. They never did. The war ended and everyone forgot." Prism closed his eyes. "I waited for death for 15 years. Instead, you came with your terrible ration bars and your soft voice. Why? Why did you not leave me like everyone else?" Thought about the question. "Because I know what it's like to be left behind. After the war, I lost everyone. My crew, my family, my reason to keep going. I spent years wishing someone would find me in my own dark place." He paused. "No one came. So I decided that if I ever found someone else trapped in the dark, I would be the one who came for them." Prism hummed softly, a sound that meant contentment. "You are a strange human, Cole." "So I've been told." They sat in comfortable silence, then felt something through the bond, a flash of fear from Prism. He opened his eyes just as the lights turned on. Hegemony soldiers filled the cavern, dozens of them in black armor, carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. In the center stood Overseer, smiling his terrible smile. "I told you," said, "sentimentality would be your undoing." Before could move, the soldiers activated their machines. Blue light surrounded Prism, and the dragon screamed. It was the worst sound had ever heard. Through the bond, he felt Prism's agony as the suppression field tore into his mind. "Kill codes activated," a soldier reported. "The creature will be dead in 3 minutes." "No," tried to run to Prism, but soldiers grabbed him and threw him to the ground. Walked closer to the thrashing dragon. "This is mercy," he said. "Dragons are weapons. They were made to serve and die. This one has suffered enough. Let it end." "Please," begged. "Please, he's not a weapon. He's a person. He has a name." "Weapons do not have names." Through the bond felt Prism weakening. The dragon's thoughts were scattered and fatting. The kill codes were destroying him from the inside, shutting down his organs one by one. In 2 minutes, Prism would be dead. Stopped struggling. He stopped begging. He looked at the soldiers holding him and said very quietly, "Let me go to him." The soldiers laughed, raised an eyebrow. "Why would I do that?" "Because he shouldn't die alone, because I promised I would stay." Met's eyes. "You're going to kill him anyway. What does it matter if I'm beside him when it happens?" Something flickered in his expression. Contempt, maybe, or confusion. He waved his hand and the soldiers released. Go say goodbye to your pet. It changes nothing. Walked toward Prism. The suppression field hurt, making his teeth ache and his vision blur. Every step was harder than the last, but he kept walking. Prism's eyes found him, golden and fatting, full of pain. I'm here, said. He put his hand on Prism's snout. I've got you, focus on me. Through the bond, he pushed. He pushed all his love, all his stubborn refusal to give up, all his belief that Prism deserved to live. He pushed 20 years of loneliness and grief, transformed into something bright and fierce. He did not know if it would work. He only knew he had to try. Prism's eyes widened. Through the bond felt something impossible happening. The kill codes were failing. Prism's nervous system was rejecting them, recognizing his presence as home, as safety, as something worth fighting for. What is happening? Demanded. The suppression field shattered. Prism rose to his full height, 30 meters of black scales and golden eyes and 15 years of rage. The soldiers opened fire, but their weapons did nothing against dragon scales. Prism opened his mouth and breathed. The cavern became an inferno. Should have died. The fire was everywhere, hot enough to melt stone, but Prism's wing curled around him, creating a small pocket of safety in the middle of the flames. Through the bond felt Prism's absolute determination. He had lost one person he loved. He would not lose another. When the fire died, the soldiers were gone. Only Ash remained, had escaped, running to his ship during the chaos. The cavern was destroyed, the walls glowing red with heat. Prism collapsed. The effort had drained everything he had. Crawled out from under the dragon's wing. He was burned and bleeding, but alive. He looked at the destruction around them and started laughing. It was the laugh of a man who had watched the impossible happen. We have to go, he said. We'll bring more ships, more soldiers. Prism lifted his head weakly. Then teach me where humans go when they have nowhere left. Grinned despite the pain. Everywhere, we go everywhere. He helped Prism stand. Together, they walked out of the ruined cavern towards ship. Behind them, the darkness they had lived in for months. Ahead of them, the unknown. But they would face it together. Prism said as they flew away from the asteroid. Yes. That was the first time you laughed. Back there when I said we go everywhere. The dragon was quiet for a moment, then through their bond felt something warm and surprised. I did not know I could laugh. You can do a lot of things you don't know about yet. Set their course for deep space. We're going to figure them out together, but first we need to find some friends. I don't think we can fight the whole hegemony by ourselves. Prism settled his huge body into the cargo hold of the stubborn mule. It barely fit, but neither of them cared. Friends, the dragon repeated, tasting the word. I have never had friends before, only handlers. Well, said, you've got one now. Let's go find some more. The stars stretched around them as they jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, Overseer was already calling for reinforcements, already planning his revenge. The hunt was just beginning. But for the first time in 15 years, Prism was not afraid. He had something worth fighting for now. He had a name and he had a friend. And he was done waiting in the dark. 6 months had changed everything. And Prism had become legends in the lawless sectors of space. Stories spread through trading posts and smuggler dens. A human mechanic and a miracle dragon traveling together, fighting the hegemony, saving others who had been thrown away. They were not alone anymore. Their small fleet now had 7 ships. The stubborn mule was still the heart of it, but now it flew alongside vessels crewed by people who had nowhere else to go. Was their pilot? She was a young woman with short black hair and angry eyes. Her brother had been a dragon rider during the war. When the order came to destroy all dragons, he had refused. The hegemony had executed him, had been running ever since, looking for a way to make their deaths mean something. Doctor was their scientist. She was not human. She had 4 arms, blue skin, and a mind that never stopped asking questions. She had come to study the bond between and Prism. According to science, it should not exist. She wanted to understand why it did. The twins were their hackers, 2 teenage girls named Jin and who had escaped from an indenture colony. They could break into any system, steal any secret. They called Uncle and spent hours playing games in Prism's shadow. And then there were the other dragons. They had found 3 more, hidden in secret hegemony facilities across the galaxy. Each one was broken in different ways. Ember had been used for experiments until her mind was shattered. Storm had been tortured to make him aggressive, but the torture had just made him afraid of everything. Whisper had stopped speaking entirely, communicating only through images in the bond. Prism helped them heal. He showed them that bonds did not have to hurt. He taught them what had taught him, that names mattered, that kindness was possible, that they deserved to exist. The dragons did not have human partners yet, but they were learning to trust, and that was enough for now. Tonight, everyone was gathered in the cargo bay of the Stubborn Mule, had called a meeting. "Doctor has something to tell us," he said. Stood up, her 4 hands waving excitedly. "I have been studying the bond between and Prism for months. I finally understand why it works differently than hegemony bonds." She activated a hologram showing 2 brains connected by lines of light. The hegemony created bonds through surgery and drugs. They were parasitic. The pilot dominated, the dragon served. It was designed to make dragons into tools. She changed the image. Now the lines between the brains flowed both ways. The bond between and Prism is symbiotic. Both minds give and receive equally. It formed not because of technology, but because of emotional connection. "You're saying their bond works because they actually care about each other," said. "That's not science. That's just feelings." "That is exactly my point." Eyes were bright with excitement. Human emotional bonding creates physical changes in the brain. When looked at Prism and felt compassion, his brain released chemicals that his mind sent through the psychic connection. Prism's brain received these chemicals and responded by forming permanent neural pathways. The bond exists because felt love, and feelings became structure. Everyone was quiet, looked at Prism, who was curled around the cargo bay, his golden eyes thoughtful. "So human emotions can literally change brain chemistry in other species," Prism said slowly. "That is why I could break the kill codes. Feelings were stronger than their programming." "Yes," nodded rapidly. "The hegemony always saw human emotions as weakness. They were wrong. Emotion is a force as real as gravity. It just works on different scales." The meeting was interrupted by alarms. Jin's voice came over the speakers. "Hegemony fleet dropping out of hyperspace. 12 ships, it's..." Everyone ran to their stations, sprinted to the bridge where was already at the controls. Through the viewport he could see them. 12 warships, bristling with weapons, surrounding their small fleet. His face appeared on their screen. He was smiling. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" the overseer said. "I have been promoted, Mr. Cole. Discovering that dragons can be recovered instead of destroyed made me very valuable. Now I am here to collect my prizes." "You can't have them," said. "I don't need your permission. Surrender the dragons and I will let the humans live. Resist and I will destroy you all." Looked at his crew. Was ready to fight, her hands steady on the controls. The twins were working furiously at their consoles, trying to find weaknesses in the enemy ships. Doctor was calculating odds that they all knew were terrible. And then there were the dragons. Prism, Ember, Storm, and Whisper, all looking at him with absolute trust. "We fight," said. The battle was chaos. The Stubborn Mule was fast but weak. The other ships in their fleet were salvage vessels and transports, not warships. Against 12 hegemony cruisers, they should have been destroyed in minutes. But they had dragons. Prism flew out of the cargo bay, his wings spreading wide in the void of space. Ember followed, her scales glowing with inner fire. Storm overcame his fear because the people he loved were in danger. Even Whisper fought, silent and terrible. The dragons moved like nothing the hegemony had ever seen. They did not fight like weapons following orders. They fought like family protecting each other. When Ember was hit, Prism covered her retreat. When Storm panicked, Whisper calmed him through their shared bond. They worked together in ways that military dragons never could because their bonds were built on love instead of chains. But it was not enough. 3 of their ships were destroyed. The stubborn mule took a direct hit that knocked out the engines, pulled himself up from the floor, blood running down his face, and saw the reactor warning flashing red. The ship was going to explode. "Everyone out," he shouted. "Get to the escape pods." The crew ran, made sure they were all gone, then turned back to the reactor. Maybe he could stop it. Maybe he could give them more time. Prism's voice came through the bond. "The reactor, I see it. You cannot stop it." "I have to try." "No," and suddenly Prism was there, his massive body wrapping around the stubborn mule like a shield. "You named me. You fed me. You stayed when everyone else would have run. Now I stay." "Prism, don't." The reactor exploded. Through the viewport saw Prism's body absorb the blast. Dragon scales could survive almost anything. Almost. When the fire cleared, Prism was floating in space. His scales were cracked. His wings were torn. His light was fading. Somehow got to an airlock. Somehow got into a suit. Somehow reached his dragon. He held Prism's massive head in his arms as the battle continued around them. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to leave me." Prism's eyes flickered open. "I am sorry I could not let you die. You are too important." "You're important too. You're my friend. You're my family." Around them, the battle shifted. Had the remaining ships. The twins had hacked into a hegemony cruiser and turned its weapons on its allies. The dragons fought with desperate fury for their fallen brother. And held Prism, refusing to let go, pouring every ounce of love and desperation through their bond. Doctor's voice came over the comm, shaky with emotion. "The bond, it's doing something. I'm reading massive energy transfer. Whatever you're feeling right now, keep feeling it." Did not understand. He only knew that he was not ready to lose anyone else. He had lost too much already. He had found Prism in the dark, had pulled him back to life, had watched him learn to laugh and hope and trust. He would not let him go. "Stay with me," begged. "Please, just stay with me." Prism's eyes focused on him. Through the bond, weak but there, felt something. "A promise." "I will try," Prism whispered. "For you, I will try." The battle ended, retreated with his surviving ships, vowing revenge. The small fleet gathered around and Prism, battered but alive. And Prism, against all odds, kept breathing. The miracle was not over yet. 40 days had not left Prism's side for 40 days. They had found a safe place, a hidden station in a system no one cared about. The other dragons guarded outside while the crew worked to keep Prism alive. His scales were cracked, his wings were destroyed, and his internal organs were failing one by one. But he would not die. Doctor ran her scanners every hour, and every hour she shook her head in amazement. "This should not be possible," she said. "His body is too damaged. He should have died in the first hour, but the bond is keeping him alive." "What do you mean?" asked. "Some emotional state is directly affecting Prism's cellular regeneration. Every time feels love, hope, or determination. It translates into healing energy through the bond. He is literally keeping Prism alive with his feelings." Did not care about the science. He only knew that he could not stop. He sat beside Prism's head, holding his hand against the dragon's snout, and he talked. He talked about everything. He talked about his childhood on Earth, a blue planet where he had grown up near an ocean. He talked about learning to fix engines with his father, about the smell of oil and metal that still reminded him of home. He talked about his wife Sarah, how she had smiled on their wedding day, how she had left him after the war because he was too broken to love. He talked about Emma, his daughter, how she had been born during a thunderstorm, how she had loved butterflies and chocolate ice cream and stories about princesses, how she had died at 14 years old when a hegemony bomb destroyed her school. He had never talked about Emma before, not to anyone, but now he told Prism everything because keeping secrets felt like giving up and refused to give up. "You would have liked her," whispered to the unconscious dragon. "She was brave like you. She always stood up for kids who were being bullied. She wanted to be a doctor." His voice cracked. "She never got the chance." He read books. He read The Little Prince again, and then Dick, and then engineering manuals because they were the only other books he had. He sang songs his grandmother had taught him, badly and off-key, because Prism had once said through the bond that he liked the sound of his voice. "You have to wake up," said. "I'm running out of books, and my singing is getting worse. You have to wake up and tell me to stop." Prism did not wake up. Word spread. Did not know how, but it did. Ships began appearing in the system. One at first, then 5, then 20. People who had heard about the mechanic and the miracle dragon. People who had been saved by them. People who had believed the hegemony's lies until they heard the truth. A diplomat came with forbidden healing technology. Her species had created the dragons long ago, before the hegemony took control. "The dragons were our children," she said, her voice heavy with guilt. "We made them to be companions, not weapons. The hegemony twisted our creation. If one can be healed by love instead of chains, perhaps there is hope for all of us." Former hegemony soldiers came, deserters who had questioned their orders. Some had been on the ships that attacked. They could not undo what they had done, but they could stand guard now. Families came with their children. They wanted to see the dragon who had a name, who had been saved by kindness. The children drew pictures that they taped to the walls of Prism's medical bay. Dragons flying through stars, dragons playing with humans, dragons surrounded by hearts. 40 days became 50. Prism was still alive. His scales were slowly knitting together. His heartbeat was growing stronger, but he would not wake up. Then the hegemony returned. It was the largest fleet had ever seen. 100 warships led by his flagship. They surrounded the station, blocking every escape route. His ultimatum was broadcast to everyone. "Surrender the dragons within 1 hour. Any who resist will be destroyed." The small fleet that had gathered looked pathetic against such force. They had maybe 30 ships, most of them transports or cargo vessels. They had 4 dragons, 3 of whom were still recovering from the battle. They had no chance. But no one ran. Stood in the medical bay, looking down at Prism. Through the bond, faint and weak, he felt his dragon dreaming. He did not know what dragons dreamed about. He hoped it was something good. "I have to go talk to them," said, "but I'll be back, I promise." He walked to the communications center and opened a channel. Not just to, but to every ship in the system, to the hegemony fleet and the allied vessels, to anyone who could hear. "This is Cole," he said. His voice was calm. He was too tired to be afraid. "Most of you don't know me. I'm nobody special. I fix ships. I salvage parts. I'm just a mechanic." He looked at the screen showing the hegemony fleet. So many guns, so much power. 15 years ago, you chained a thinking creature in the dark and left it to starve. You forgot about it. You decided it was garbage, and it waited there alone for 15 years. Paused. His crew was watching him. The other dragons were watching. Ships across the system were listening. "When I found it, you know what its first words were. It asked, 'May I have leftovers, sir?' It didn't demand. It didn't threaten. It asked permission to eat garbage. It was so broken that it apologized for wanting to survive." He felt tears on his face, but did not wipe them away. That's what your empire creates. Being so hurt that they're grateful for crumbs. Being so alone that kindness feels like a trick. You call that order. You call that strength. Straightened his shoulders. I call it cruelty, and I'm done with it. You want to know why our dragons fight harder than yours ever did? It's because yours fought out of fear. Ours fight because they finally have something to protect. That's the difference. Fear can make you strong, but love can make you impossible to stop. He looked directly at Ship. So come and take them. Bring your fleet. Bring your weapons. We're not moving. We're not surrendering. And every soldier you send, every drop of blood you spend won't be for victory. It will be because you're afraid. Afraid that kindness might be stronger than chains. Afraid that love might actually matter. Afraid that everything you believe might be wrong. Smiled though his heart was breaking. Fire when ready, we'll be here. Silence. Then, across the communication channels, something unexpected happened. A young officer on a hegemony cruiser lowered his weapons and stepped back from his station. A pilot refused an order to attack. A captain turned her ship away. Not everyone, not even most, but enough. The hegemony fleet began to fracture. Officers who had questioned orders for years suddenly found their courage. Soldiers who had heard stories about the mechanic and his dragon decided they could not be part of the destruction. Ships turned against ships. Chaos spread. Screamed orders, but no one was listening anymore. In the confusion, the hegemony fleet retreated. Not defeated, but broken. Civil war had begun within their ranks, and they had bigger problems than one mechanic and his dragon. Stood in the communication center, watching them go, not quite believing it was real. Behind him, Doctor spoke softly. The medical bay, you should come. He ran. Prism's eyes were open, golden and bright, looking around at the drawings children had left, at the flowers someone had placed by his bed, at the worn-out mechanic who stood in the doorway with tears streaming down his face. Did I miss something? Prism asked, his voice weak but there. You look tired. Laughed and cried at the same time. He stumbled to Prism's side and pressed his forehead against the dragon's snout. Through the bond, he felt everything. Prism's pain and relief and gratitude and love. 50 days of darkness, but always, always the feeling of beside him, refusing to let go. You stupid, brave, wonderful dragon, whispered. You scared me to death. You stayed, Prism said. The whole time I felt you. Even when I couldn't wake up, I felt you. Of course I stayed. You're my family. 5 years later, everything was different. The hegemony had split into factions. The reformers were winning, slowly, passing laws that recognized dragons as citizens with rights. The war was over for good this time. Ran a sanctuary on a green planet with 2 suns. Dragons came there to heal. Humans came to learn. Bonds formed naturally, based on choice and kindness and time. Prism lay in the sunlight outside the main building. His scales had healed, leaving silver scars that he wore proudly. Children played on his tail while he pretended to be annoyed but fooled no one. A shuttle landed, walked out leading a small dragon behind her. It was young and thin and terrified, just rescued from a black market lab. Knelt down to meet its eyes. It flinched away from him. It's okay, he said gently. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you. The young dragon looked at him with suspicion and fear. Through the bond he had developed with all the dragons at the sanctuary, felt its hunger, its confusion, its desperate hope that this was not another trick. May I have leftovers, sir? It whispered. Smiled. He had heard those words before, and they still broke his heart. But he also knew what happened next. He knew about names and stories and singing badly and reading books. He knew about love that could heal wounds and break chains and change the galaxy. You can have whatever you want, he said. And tomorrow, if you'd like, we're going to find you a name. The young dragon stared at him. Behind, Prism lifted his great head and hummed with contentment. The children kept playing. The two suns kept shining. And somewhere across the galaxy, in a hegemony memorial hall that had once celebrated conquest, there was a new plaque. The words on it were simple. They asked us for leftovers. We should have given them the universe. The mechanic took the young dragon's small claw in his hand and led it toward the sanctuary. Another miracle was about to begin.